Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
After the Iron Psychic made up his mind, the psychic fluctuations on the metal giant began to gather in his hands. Part of the metal on his body also flowed out and gradually condensed in the hands of the Iron Giant, formed a physical iron spear. In the next moment, the Iron Giant, who looked as powerful as an ancient Greek sculpture, threw this spear towards Chen Ming. With the blessing of strength and psychic energy, the spear almost instantly burst out with the highest speed comparable to the Gauss cannon, a large weapon projectile famous for its speed and quality. Although such a steel spear would not pose a threat to Chen Ming's cruiser under normal circumstances, but Chen Ming felt a fatal danger on it. So he did not hesitate to make a short-distance jump in another direction again, and distanced himself from the source of danger again. Almost in the next moment, the iron spear hit the location of Chen Ming's two cruisers just now, and suddenly stopped there without any warning. The steel giant behind him liquefied at a high speed that was almost invisible to the naked eye and suddenly began to move, leaving a metallic afterimage in space. Instantly appeared at the location of the spear. This steel spear is part of the steel giant. The steel psychic relies on the effect of psychic power, and perhaps the attraction between the metal itself, to achieve such a teleportation effect that is almost close to the jump. If Chen Ming continues to stay in the position just now, the consequences will be disastrous. However, Chen Ming is not too worried about this ability. After all, the effect of a real jump engine is far stronger than the psychic power of the steel psychic, which seems to jump but actually moves at a very high speed. Unless he can predict the location of Chen Ming's next jump, there is almost no possibility for this steel spear to get close. But Chen Ming is not stupid. He can look at the direction of the spear and then decide the jump location. Even if the steel psychic can continue to rely on psychic power to control it after throwing the spear cannot have the same speed as when it was thrown by the steel giant. Otherwise, the iron psychic would have used psychic control directly from the beginning, and there was no need to rely on the body of the iron giant to perform the throw action. And Chen Ming could also choose to dodge in the opposite direction of the spear. The physical distance is here. No matter how fast the spear is, this distance must be walked honestly. And for Chen Ming now, he can actually leave the iron psychic alone. Just now, Bai Quan personally confirmed to him that the fleet of the 14th Legion had been prepared in a very short time and would be able to jump over immediately to deal with Zhu Jing's fleet and this psychic. And the iron psychic has now lost the spaceship he was riding, and his true form has been revealed. Although his physical body has the ability to move at such a high speed, it definitely does not have the ability to jump. If Chen Ming just ran away like this, who could stop him? Who could catch up with him? And he didn't have to worry about no one dealing with these things after he left. There was no need for him to confront a psychic who could arm wrestle with the boss without restrictions. Moreover, the psychic power of this psychic was indeed somewhat restrained to his psychic power. The psychic power controlled by metal did have a very difficult effect on the spacecraft controlled by him. If Chen Ming had given him a chance to get close to him during the struggle between him and Chen Ming might have been overturned. But after thinking about it, Chen Ming did not jump out of the galaxy, and also asked Bai Quan not to let the people of the 14th Legion come over for the time being. After all, the Iron Psychic had lost his spacecraft and could not even escape. The final outcome was basically determined, but he was still making the last struggle. Chen Ming had no need to be afraid. And this was indeed a rare opportunity, a battlefield and stage that belonged to him. Chen Ming now urgently needed an opportunity to show his strength. He was fed up with the endless assassinations and targeting by those who had grudges against him. He needed to let those who had small thoughts about him and his friends understand the consequences of going against him. Killing a psychic of the same level as the boss does not mean that Chen Ming is on par with the boss in terms of psychic power. But at least it shows that Chen Ming's combat power is no longer something that can be controlled by sending a few cruisers. Before those people take action, they should at least consider whether their methods can pose a threat to Chen Ming and whether they can withstand Chen Ming's revenge. So, when the steel giant threw the steel spear with stronger explosive power and speed for the second time, Chen Ming just started the jump engine and distanced himself from the steel giant again. This time Chen Ming deliberately placed the jump landing point farther away, and the steel spear actually deflected its direction the moment it hit the position where he just stopped, just as he thought. At a relatively slow speed, it rushed to the position after Chen Ming's jump. But obviously, at this distance and speed, the spear could not touch Chen Ming before he jumped again. The Iron Giant did not continue to control the spear, but appeared at the position of the spear again, staring at the tail of Chen Ming's two cruisers, the position of the jump engine. Chen Ming's maintenance ability alone combined with the jump engine made him invincible. There is absolutely no way to touch Chen Ming by physical displacement and attack alone. The Iron Giant also made it clear after the third attempt, and temporarily gave up the fastest way of movement in his hand. But what followed was the surging psychic fluctuations on the giant's body. The range of his psychic influence was expanding rapidly. This is a manifestation of the psychic strength of the psychic, and it is not restricted by anything except the psychic himself. Although it consumes a lot of mental power, it also allows him to make the psychic contact Chen Ming's spaceship faster than normal movement. But Chen Ming's perception of danger is quite keen. Before he felt the influence of the psychic fluctuations expand enough to affect the spacecraft he controlled, and just sensed the danger. He had already repaired the jump engines of the two spacecrafts and jumped again to increase the distance. The Steel Giant, who had already expanded the psychic influence range to the extreme by relying on mental power, threw his spear again at the landing point of Chen Ming's jump. The two cruisers performed the jump again, and as if they could accurately find the psychic coverage of the Steel Psychic, they fell directly to a position that he could not reach at all. Except for the small boats that dealt with the left-axis spacecraft and returned to Chen Ming in the last jump. Chen Ming's refraction and the two Centurions did not follow the cruiser's jump engine to increase the distance like the Storm and the Fighter, but remained in place. Therefore, in the next moment, the three spaceships left by Chen Ming were like a piece of waste paper and were squeezed into a messy metal ball. Even if the Centurion's damping position remained open, the refractive electromagnetic pulse was constantly trying to affect the metal giant. The metal ball was immediately absorbed into the body of the Iron Giant. However, there was no excessive emotional fluctuation on Chen Ming's face. He just watched this scene silently and gradually became confident in his heart. While the Iron Giant tried to get close to him again, he made a short-distance jump, maintaining a subtle distance. Until now, the Psychic and the Iron Giant finally realized that something was wrong with Chen Ming's cruiser. The Iron Psychic was very clear about the basic concept of the jump engine. That is, as the jump distance increases, the loss of the jump engine will increase. This means that in a short period of time and within a short distance, as long as the battlefield situation is not too chaotic, such as their current one-on-one situation, then give the jump engine a chance to start, then the jump engine can indeed make multiple jumps. Achieve a situation almost similar to the flashing engine of Yuhui. Although Chen Ming has two cruisers that can take turns to make short-distance jumps, the total number of jumps of his two spacecraft is obviously very wrong. Without being able to get close and control, the psychic power of the Iron Psychic will be difficult to play a practical effect. Moreover, after he found that he had overturned and got too excited at the beginning, he gradually calmed down. He found that Chen Ming had these two cruisers in his hands and could find an opportunity to escape at any time. But he didn't. Either he was playing with him, or he wanted to kill him here. Chen Ming was certainly not playing with him, nor was he wasting his mental power, let alone giving him a spaceship for free. What he is doing now is delaying time. And the purpose of delaying time is to make his psychic power more effective. Chen Ming's psychic power can control spacecraft and mechanical equipment. But in the past, as long as these things controlled by him were destroyed, he would lose control of these things. But now it is different. Even if the things he controls are destroyed, he can continue to keep his psychic power on the damaged wreckage. As long as he provides mental power to maintain this connection, the control will not be broken. So, the same goes for the wreckage of the spacecraft mixed into the metal giant. And with the flow of metal liquid inside the metal giant, the fragments of Chen Ming's three assimilated spacecraft have spread all over the giant's body. Chen Ming can now use these fragments as a fulcrum to make some modifications. This is why Chen Ming has the confidence to defeat this psychic and does not leave. And the craziest modification Chen Ming can make now must be the technology he learned from Zhuojing. Even if the steel psychic reacts now, it is too late. At this moment, Bai Quan, who is communicating with Chen Ming through the terminal, is watching everything happening in front of him in silence. He had always been generous in looking at Chen Ming with the highest vision, so he was not surprised at how Chen Ming's psychic power could be exerted. Therefore, when Chen Ming left the spaceship and saw it being absorbed, he had already guessed what Chen Ming was doing. And when the body of the steel giant suddenly began to become bloated, he completely understood how bold Chen Ming was and how unexpected his ideas were. The actions of the steel giant stagnated as his body changed. The psychic inside had already discovered the abnormality inside the steel giant's body. Those foreign objects that appeared in his body for no reason were obviously affected by Chen Ming's psychic power. He had some understanding of Chen Ming's psychic power and knew that Chen Ming could control the spaceship. Then those spaceships that were assimilated by him were the source of these foreign objects. But there was no psychic fluctuation on the 3 spaceships he absorbed just now, and there was no trace left by Chen Ming. He even used his mental power to clean the spaceship from inside to outside before absorbing it, and even if he crushed the spaceship into powder during the absorption process, he did not find any abnormalities. What's going on? The face of the Iron Psychic was as black as ink. He knew that he had failed today. At first, he did not expect that Chen Ming had 3 additional cruisers to call. Later, he did not expect that Chen's psychic power would not leave any traces of psychic power on the spaceship he had affected, causing him to eat the wrong thing. But he did not want to die here. He had to continue to struggle. As long as he could get back to the other 3 cruisers that were still fighting with the space station, he would still have a chance to leave. At that time, when he tried to raise his hand to raise the steel spear and prepare to throw it into the distance, he found that he suddenly could not move. The foreign matter in his body was affecting the use of his psychic power and the movements of the Iron Giant. He immediately tried to use the flow of metal inside to try to squeeze out the foreign matter transformed by Chen Ming. But it was useless. As soon as he expelled a little, more foreign matter would appear in the steel giant's body. And these foreign matter were still forming some irregular compartments, gradually isolating the steel giant's interior. Without this steel giant, it would be difficult for him to move quickly in space, and it would be impossible to escape the pursuit of the cruiser. The steel psychic was still constantly expelling to the outside world. But the more he expelled, the more bloated the steel giant became. You should know that Chen Ming is now using all the materials that he has moved away from the 6 colonies to make Zhuojing's highly destructive high explosives in his body. Even if these materials only account for a small part of the colonial materials that Chen Ming took away, when these materials that should have been used in industrial facilities are applied to individuals, that's not a small problem. And if it's just ordinary explosives, it's okay. If it doesn't break the defense, then all the damage is 0. But Zhuojing's self-destruction professional and the critical implosion opportunity induced by Chen Ming are the real, fatal points. For Chen Ming, these supplies can be bought again if they are gone, and money can be earned again if it is gone. But the opportunity to completely kill a psychic who is at the same level as the boss and has a grudge against him only comes today. No one will give him such a good opportunity in the future. The body of the steel giant is still expanding abnormally, and more things are still appearing in his body. This is the most aggressive way that Chen Ming's psychic power can ignore the limitations of space and can be exerted. In the blink of an eye. When Chen Ming's Yuhui temporary station only left a little bit of basic materials that could be used to maintain the daily dormancy of his Yuhui, Chen Ming activated the high explosives that almost enveloped the steel giant and completely filled the steel giant. The body of the steel giant instantly turned red from the inside to the outside and gradually moved towards the direction of blazing white. Its metal was being melted, and its body was being destroyed. The terrifying explosives almost burst out with a shining light like a star in a short period of time. For a moment, it seemed to cover all the light inside the entire galaxy. The things that Chen Ming left in the steel giant were completely destroyed with the explosion and could not be sensed again. And the steel giant exploded into a ball of molten iron in this explosion that was enough to destroy a weapon. The extreme high temperature had not yet dissipated and the fierce fire had not yet burned out. But Chen Ming's rainstorm and fighter had already rushed into the fireball that was still burning after the explosion. The outer periphery was gradually dispersing because of the weightlessness of the molten liquid metal, but the metal liquid inside was still barely gathered together. However, it was also completely dispersed under the collision of the two spacecraft with the shields turned on. Then, Chen Ming found his target. He found the core of the Iron Giant. Here, Chen Ming saw a humanoid creature with a metal appearance. He was the Iron Psychic. He had no way to completely protect himself from such a powerful explosion, so he had lost half of his body. His right arm and right leg were gone, and half of his abdomen had disappeared into space. But even with so many parts of his body missing, he was still alive in space. His metal body exuded various strange metallic colors, and it was obvious that he had used various materials to strengthen himself, which was one of the reasons why he was still alive. This was the ability of a top psychic. The boss could kill a fleet of Yuhui main fleet in one encounter, and he could withstand the explosion of a large amount of left-diameter special explosives that he might not be able to withstand even if an offensive came. Even though he lost consciousness, he was still instinctively absorbing the surrounding metal materials to repair himself. As long as he was given a certain amount of time, he could repair himself. So Chen Ming thought for a moment, then took the initiative to dismantle some of the metal materials on his two spaceships and threw them at the Iron Psychic. The Iron Psychic, who had lost consciousness and only had the instinct to survive, absorbed the precious metal controlled by Chen Ming into his body just as Chen Ming thought. He instinctively decomposed the metal completely and repaired the damage in his body. After the explosion, Chen Ming's expression of tension, expectation, and anger gradually calmed down. Whether you are conscious or not, what you are doing is looking for death. At this moment, Chen Ming did not lose control of the absorbed metal. The body of the Iron Psychic was already under his control. Chen Ming's psychic power was applied to him and spread to his whole body. Then, just like the three spaceships that Chen Ming had squeezed into a ball before, the body of the Iron Psychic was controlled by Chen Ming to squeeze into a metal ball with a diameter of about half a meter. At the same time, his ability to continue absorbing metal was cut off. As long as Chen Ming didn't want to, he would never be able to recover in this life. Chen Ming didn't kill him directly now. After all, a living psychic is more valuable than a dead one. And Chen Ming actually has a special idea now, as long as he can find the same type of spiritual nerve extractor as Yuhui later. Of course, Chen Ming only has a very superficial idea now. He doesn't plan to think too much. He just plans to do things first. Chen Ming controlled the spacecraft to capture the metal ball inside the cargo hold of the fighter Kai. Then he turned around and flew towards the space station with the storm. Before the fighter Kai and the storm took action, Chen Ming's 5 cruisers had already returned to the vicinity of the space station earlier. Before, one brilliant ship could make the Zhuojing fleet unable to raise its head, and 2 cruisers could completely suppress the Zhuojing fleet. And there was still enough energy to clean up the miscellaneous soldiers. As soon as the 5 cruisers arrived, the Zhuojing fleet was instantly defeated. In order to cover the retreat of the Eagle class, the 2 defenders were completely left here by Chen Ming. Only the Eagle class barely started the jump engine and jumped with the remaining fleet of just over 30 ships. It seems that it was not the people from Zhuojing who were driving, but the people from the war zone. Otherwise, the people from Zhuojing would have come up and fought Chen Ming directly instead of retreating. Although Hui Huang could determine their location after the jump, Chen Ming did not try to track them. After all, he had more important things to deal with now, the psychic. It was better to leave the tracking of the eagle that escaped by jump to Baichuan's 14th Legion. The battle ended in a very short time. When Chen Ming sent the eagle's jump data to Bai Quan's voice rang out, "Is it over?" "Well, you should be able to see it, right?" "Of course I can see it, so I'm asking." Chen Ming couldn't help but smile a little and said, "This is my luck. They misjudged my strength, and that psychic also had a brainwave and wanted to absorb my spaceship. Assistant psychics can exert strength that normal psychics can't match when they have the right assistance object. Having your own cruiser is equivalent to satisfying this conditions." Who would have thought that your psychic power could make the output of weapons so outrageous? Although your psychic power is restrained, it seems that it is not restrained so much. Who would have thought that you could still control the debris after it turned into powder? Chen Ming suddenly realized the meaning of Bai Quan's words, and then said meaningfully, "Yes, who would have thought?" Bai Quan also smiled, put aside the topic and said, "By the way, I have found out the identity of another psychic." The smile on Chen Ming's face disappeared instantly, and he hurriedly asked, "Who?" "A man named Hu Yi, also a member of your psychic society. After all, the society is a loose organization, and it is normal for conflicts to arise within it." "What kind of psychic is he?" "It is said that he is a psychic related to temperature, and I don't know more." "Okay, I know, thank you. I didn't do anything. I just helped you check someone. I didn't do anything to help you command." Chen Ming knew why Bai Quan didn't help command and guide. After all, the front was already suppressed like this, and there was no point in giving too much command. And he himself didn't expect that when his psychic power was fully activated, the spacecraft would have such an amazing performance. Of course, he said that he couldn't say that. Bai Quan still helped him organize the follow-up rescue fleet when the situation was unclear, and helped him find out the appearance of the second psychic in advance, and even found out the identity of this psychic quite quickly. Chen Ming used the eagle that he escaped to repay the former, and he still remembered the latter favor. So he still said, "The two things cannot be counted together, and I must thank him." Bai Quan naturally would not refuse Chen Ming's kindness and said, "Then let's continue to cooperate happily in the future?" "Yes, happy cooperation." After the battle. Space Arm Number 2, the boss's hardware store. The boss was expressionlessly talking on video with another psychic, Hu Yi, who had come to the space station. He had already learned the news outside the space station, and the explosions that occasionally sounded in his ears had subsided. So he said to Hu Yi, "The fight outside is over, you should leave too." Hui responded with some surprise, "Oh, is it over? Judging from your reaction, the result seems not good for me." The boss continued to say to him expressionlessly, "You can see for yourself? Hey, don't be so stern. You also know that I can't help myself. Let's drink tea and chat here. It's good not to fight or join in the fun, right? We are all civilized people. There is really no need to fight." The boss suddenly sneered and said, "Didn't they give too much?" Hui spread his hands and said, "It has something to do with it." The boss was not fooled at all, and directly exposed Hui's lie and said, "I think it is the most important relationship. I hope you think this is a profit." "What? Can you give me more than that? If you can really turn against me on the spot, it's not impossible." The boss did not answer Hui's question, but told a fact. "Then do you know that the president plans to come to see Chen Ming in the next 2 days?" Hui was stunned and said uncertainly, "What? Do you know that the government will definitely give Chen Ming special protection in the future? Especially in the Empire. If you want to take action against Chen Ming, I will offend more than just one person." Hui suddenly panicked, because Wuan didn't need to tell these lies that could be easily exposed. He hurriedly asked, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Haha, you want to go yourself?" The boss hung up the phone directly and turned his head to look at the door of the hardware store. Chen Ming happened to be standing there at this time, followed by a transport robot, and the robot's several mechanical arms were holding a huge metal ball. At the last second when the boss and Hui hung up the communication, Hui happened to see a little bit of the situation at the door of the store through the video communication screen. Chen Ming, who returned to the space station safely without any signs of injury, and the familiar metal ball behind him, all made him feel a chill at this moment. And when the communication screen disappeared, Hui recalled the previous screen, and he suddenly had a moment of palpitations. He immediately left his current room and came outside. Outside his room was a corridor made entirely of metal materials, with several portholes on the corridor. Through the portholes, you can see the star in the galaxy where the pirate space station is located, and the flames of the violent explosion that has not yet been completely extinguished in the galaxy. It can be seen that Hui is now on a spaceship quite close to the galaxy where the pirate space station is located, but also in a position that cannot be detected by normal detectors. Although it is still difficult to see the situation in the galaxy clearly with the naked eye at this distance. But this distance is enough to quickly enter the galaxy when necessary, allowing Hu Yi to maintain a deterrent to the boss. Just as Hu Yi just said, he really just wanted to keep in touch with his boss, and then drink tea and pass this mission. As long as he didn't move, the boss couldn't deal with the other steel psychic who was fighting with Chen Ming. That's why they were really chatting over video and never left each other's sight. Of course, the boss has a wide range of channels and can get a lot of information at the first time without leaving home. And he still doesn't know what the situation outside is like. But after he came out, someone immediately handed him a document in silence without a good look. Obviously, this look was not directed at Hu Yi, but because of what happened outside just now. Hu Yi looked at the galaxy in the distance through the porthole again, then returned to his room and flipped through the document. When he read halfway, his face had changed drastically. He originally thought it was just a general defeat. He never expected that a psychic would die today in an unknown place in the marginal star field. If Wu hadn't stayed here, no one would know about it in his life. And he died in the hands of a new psychic who had only become a psychic recently. Hu Yi's mind flashed the last scene of the video call with Wu. The metal ball held by the robot behind Chen Ming was probably the relic left behind by the Iron Psychic after his death. Combined with what Wu had just said about the president's meeting with Chen Ming, he thought of many possibilities in an instant, each of which would cause him trouble. Hu Yi immediately swiped quickly on the terminal with some nervousness, looking for anyone in his contacts who could help him. Even if he didn't say that he could get rid of the trouble, at least he had to confirm whether the trouble was real. When the president's contact information appeared in Hu Yi's eyes, he hesitated for a moment, did not click, but continued to scroll down and found the contact information of the person who hired him. But when he called, there was only a busy tone in the call. While Hu Yi was calling, War Zone Station, Lieutenant General's office. Lieutenant General and Taoing were here, but Zhang Feng was not there at this time. The Lieutenant General was looking at the terminal and said, "The call cannot be made. The signal is blocked." Taoing, who was looking outside and waiting for the result anxiously near the window, immediately turned around and asked, "What did you say?" "I said, the signal is blocked." Taoing immediately turned around, took out the terminal, looked down and asked, "Isn't the signal full?" "It's too easy to forge a signal." "What do you mean? Who dares?" Taoing suddenly stopped talking halfway, his face pale. There is no need to guess who can block the signal of a lieutenant general's office in the war zone station. She was a bit aggressive at first, but she lost her momentum and asked tremblingly, "Why so fast? You didn't dormant when you should have. Look, someone is here to take advantage of your misfortune. And don't you think we have provoked too many people? Who can be protected? Your family?" The lieutenant general deliberately emphasized the word family. Taoing immediately returned to his previous state and pointed at the lieutenant general and said, "What do you mean? Are you blaming me?" The lieutenant general shook his head and put the self-defense pistol on the table into the drawer of the table. Without saying a word, he continued to drink tea as if nothing had happened. "Speak, what do you mean?" Taoing walked quickly to the lieutenant general and slapped the desk. However, at this moment, noisy footsteps suddenly came from the door. Taoing panicked again and subconsciously took a few steps back until she bumped into the sofa. The next moment, the door of the office was opened directly. The internal inspection team of the army, wearing special military uniforms, filed in one after another, and everyone's face was as hard as cold iron. The leader of the inspection team stepped forward and said to the two people in the room, "Lieutenant General Zhu Yijing, Lieutenant General Taoing, we have evidence of your private collusion with Liu Dezwajing. Please let us go." Zhu Yijing finished the last sip of tea and took the initiative to extend his hands to the inspection team. Tao Ying's face was pale, and he swayed helplessly and slumped on the sofa next to him. Then he was dragged up by the inspection team and forcibly taken away from the office. A group of people walked between the office buildings. The road that the inspection team was going to take had been cleared in advance, and no one noticed the embarrassment of the two lieutenant generals at this time, which was considered to be the last bit of face for them. In the process of walking out of the office building and heading to the location where the spaceship the inspection team was riding was docked, Zhu Yijing suddenly asked the team leader, Can I make a phone call? The team leader did not refuse directly. After all, reporting problems as soon as possible is a choice that can relatively reduce some of his own faults. He has seen too many cases. So he asked back, "Who?" "My deputy." "Zhang Feng?" "Yes." The team leader had a strange expression on his face. After asking for instructions, he said, "Okay." He took out the terminal of the lieutenant general that he had just confiscated and dialed Zhang Feng's number. Obviously, Zhang Feng was not affected by the lieutenant general's affairs, and the lieutenant general knew the reason very well. Soon, the call was connected, and the lieutenant general came up and asked directly, "Did you do it?" Zhang Feng did not reply, but the lieutenant general seemed to have determined the answer. "Well, I know. You do what you want to do." It seems that the lieutenant general did not want to drag Zhang Feng into the water. However, the team leader did not stop him. Anyway, the content of the communication would be monitored by someone, and words that should not be said would be blocked before they were passed to the other side. He doesn't need to worry too much. And they didn't find any violation of rules by Zhang Feng. It seems that all Zhang Feng has done for so many years is to follow the lieutenant general. Of course, everyone knows that Zhang Feng must have done more than what is on the surface, but everything requires evidence. All the evidence shows that Zhang Feng did nothing, so they can't take him away for no reason. Zhang Feng suddenly sighed and said, "I have always been doing what I want to do. But many times, when I am doing what I want to do, I have to do something that I can't even think of and will never do. Very stupid things. Just like last time, he only needed to be a mascot there to get the credit, but someone insisted that he had enough performance." The person Zhang Feng was referring to was very clear, and the lieutenant general couldn't help but look at Tao Ying, who was too weak to stand up and had to rely on others to walk. People can't get rid of their emotions, so they will be confused when they care about others. In addition, I like laymen to guide experts. There is a difference between civilians and military officers after all. As the lieutenant general said, he suddenly asked, "What do you think of me?" The lieutenant general's career has ended, and he can basically spend the rest of his life in prison. As the person who reported the lieutenant general, Zhang Feng knew this, so he could safely say what he really thought at this time. "General, and it's on the lower side. You were the one who promoted me from the bottom, but you were also the one who threatened me with my family. And as you just said, there is a difference between civilians and officers. Let alone officers. I am not even a civilian now. So I am grateful to you and hate you, but overall, let it be." "What about Tao Ying?" Seeing Zhang Feng's silence, the lieutenant general sighed slightly in his heart, and then said, "Then answer me one last question. What are your plans for that person?" Zhang Feng said without hesitation, "I will stay away from him. It's best not to have any connection with him in this life. Your plan outside has failed. Chen Ming survived. The fleet in the past was completely destroyed, and one psychic was lost. Is this what you want?" However, Zhang Feng's last sentence was directly cut off by the person who was monitoring it, and it did not reach the ears of the lieutenant general. The Military Discipline Inspection Committee continued to escort people onto their spacecraft, preparing to go to a higher-level military district. However, there is only one military region higher than the Star Region Joint War Zone, the Central Military Region of the Empire. At this time, on the pirate space station, Chen Ming had just asked the robot to drag the metal ball into the boss's store. The boss was full of questions at first, but when he sensed a familiar spiritual energy fluctuation overflowing from the metal ball, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, came up and stretched out his hand to press the metal ball and said, "What's going on with you?" Although he just knew some of the news from the outside world, it was also the news he got from other people. Except for Chen Ming, everyone only saw the explosion that was enough to destroy the battleship. There was no explanation of the specific situation inside the core after the explosion. No one knows what happened inside. So when Chen Ming dragged the ball over, the boss instantly had no concept of this situation in his mind. Then Chen Ming explained seriously, "He is mentally retarded, absorbed the things affected by my spiritual energy, and then he manually controlled the metal ball to restore it to a half-crippled human form in front of the boss. When the Iron Psychic, who had returned to human form, began to absorb the surrounding metal objects again instinctively. Chen Ming rolled him back. The boss thought for a while and gave Chen Ming a thumbs up. Awesome. Chen Ming didn't need to worry about the following things. The order of the space station was almost completely restored when he came back. His advanced arrangements worked. One of the two robots sent out successfully restored the power system of a space arm, maintaining the power supply of some important equipment of the space station, but the price was that this space station was controlled by him. Chen Ming believed that the company behind the space station must know this, but no one mentioned it, so he didn't take the initiative to say it. Another robot sent out to find the location of the hacker also successfully controlled the hacker. Even though he had a lot of sophisticated individual equipment, he still couldn't kill the robot with Chen Ming's ability. With a stable power system supply, and the hacker was captured alive, there was no problem with the internal network. And there were also the deleted but recorded data provided by Chen Ming. The people in the cybersecurity department of the administration can also quickly locate the left-wing elements that have entered the space station. The entire administration was mobilized. Under the leadership of the deputy director, with the experience of the last time, all the problems within the administration were quickly resolved, and a martial law order was quickly issued. It didn't take long to completely suppress the chaos in the entire space station. Although the losses were still great, at least they would not continue to increase. As for the director, the people in the space station didn't find him, but Chen Ming did. The director boarded his cruise ship again, probably preparing to go back to where he came from and find connections to smooth things over. Then, he was sent back by Chen Ming himself in a spaceship. Chen Ming didn't know what happened afterwards, but the factory director would definitely notify him and tell him what the company had found out during the interrogation. On the side of Chen Ming and the boss simply confirmed that the metal ball was indeed the steel psychic himself and asked Chen Ming about his plan. After learning Chen Ming's thoughts, he didn't say much. The boss didn't know what the device that Yu Hui had delivered at the beginning was, but he still knew about Chen Ming's situation during this period. Therefore, he also knew about the existence of the spiritual awakening nerve extractor. By the way, he also knew that the Empire had obtained the manufacturing method of artificial spiritual awakening nerves and had successfully reproduced them. As for the role of these reproduced artificial spiritual awakening nerves, it is basically research. But there are also some that can be sold to the outside when the research institutes under the Empire's official research on spiritual awakening nerves lack funds. Of course, the effect of implantation after those rich people buy it varies from person to person. Under normal circumstances, when this kind of artificial spiritual awakening nerve is implanted in a non-psychic, it can actually be said to be completely meaningless except for slightly activating the mental power of the implanter. It's like planting a field. First, you set up a shelf on the ground, but in the end you find that there are no seeds that can be planted. Then the shelf is useless. The awakening of a psychic still depends on the individual. If implanting an artificial awakening nerve can awaken psychic power, then psychics should have been everywhere. But if it is such a known powerful psychic's awakening nerve, there may be many people who want it. The metal ball is Chen Ming's own trophy, and he can do whatever he wants with it. In any case, in the eyes of outsiders, when the explosion occurred, the steel psychic was already dead. However, Chen Ming was good at asking for advice and asked the boss about the treatment of the steel psychic named Yen Shtong. After all, Chen Ming thought carefully about the matter of buying and selling the awakening nerves of psychics and felt that it was a bit strange, and the extraction of the awakening nerves would most likely lead to the death of the psychic. Chen Ming didn't care about killing people, but he still couldn't accept killing people in this way. After all, he was not Yu Hui, and it was impossible for him to think absolutely rationally about what was good for him. Just like when he destroyed the batch of powder needles of the smuggling fleet. Of course, he knew how much money he could make if he sold this batch of goods. But he didn't want to bear the consequences. It was the same now. He couldn't do this to his kind. If Yui had the chilling nerve, Chen Ming would just pull it out, but he had to think about it if it was someone else's. So Chen Ming still hadn't made up his mind, and asked the boss if he had any plans to take over. But the boss didn't really need it. Although there were indeed conflicts between him and Yen Xiong, their conflicts were basically caused by Chen Ming, and now they ended because of Chen Ming. He didn't need to care too much about Yin Xiong. But after understanding Chen Ming's distress, the boss gave Chen Ming a paragraph introducing Zhu Jing. There were only a few keywords, such as cults, kidnapping, terrorist attacks on civilian facilities, smuggling, and frequent conversations with people about heart-to-heart things, and clearly pointed out the fact that Yin Xiong and Zhu Jing were cooperating. Then Chen Ming's psychological pressure was gone. He didn't care how many times this kind of person died. Of course, he still didn't want to do such a thing as pulling out people's chilling nerves. However, the boss also promised to ask people who have grudges against Yin Xiong. Who knows who might be interested? If no one is interested, then Chen Ming might as well keep him. A psychic can always be useful. Moreover, if Chen Ming tries to replace all the metal on Yin Xiong, who has lost consciousness, with metal materials that he has controlled, who knows, he might be able to get a psychic who is completely controlled by him. The boss's words also reminded Chen Ming of this possibility. This is much more acceptable to him than pulling out a person's spiritual nerves. However, what to do next depends on the specific situation. While Chen Ming and the boss were talking about psychics, the headquarters of Shinda Company had also received news from their pirate space station. A board meeting was quickly organized. This was a critical meeting, and the company needed to adjust its overall strategic direction. Therefore, all directors had to come. But when the meeting was about to start, there was still one person missing at the meeting table. The chairman looked around and said, "Wait for him. He is the most important person in this meeting." Since it was an online meeting, the others didn't quite know what the missing director was doing. The director who hadn't gone to the meeting was talking on the phone in his office in the branch under his jurisdiction, and his tone was very irritable. "I just gave him a casual job that could make a lot of money, and look at what he did. Look." A middle-aged male voice came from the other end of the phone. "Your brother-in-law is just like that. Please take care of him. Didn't I take care of him several times before? Don't be greedy. If you sit in that position, someone will come to give you money. Didn't I say that?" What did he do? He stole the property of the employees of the black company. He colluded with outsiders. He was related to Zhu Jing. Which of these can a human do? But he didn't know it was Zhu Jing. Would Zhu Jing write the words Zhu Jing on his face and tell you, "You don't have a brain, right?" Can he take that money? But the main is it Chen Ming. Isn't he who is more fucking? Did the company say that he has died? Do you know how much do you want to lose? In his own mood, he could only hammered his table and said, "My fucking is really..." But suddenly, the director was calm and came down, saying, "Forget it." He took out a resignation report from the drawer of the desk, as well as the share transfer agreement. "I quit." You can't. Get lost." With one word, the director ended the call. He turned off all the devices that could contact him, and then connected to the company's conference system. When his projection appeared at the company's headquarters, he put the report on the table and said, "This is my resignation report." As the director made his resignation report public at the meeting, the other directors at the conference table looked at each other for a few times, and several directors also took out their resignation reports. There was a big problem with the company's previous resolution, especially the resolution on Chen Ming. Chen Ming can now be said to be a psychic with combat power close to Wu Wen's level. Even if there are various factors affecting this, even if the upper limit of Chen Ming's combat power is the lower limit of Wu Wen, there is no possibility of winning in a head-on battle. But since Chen Ming killed Yin Xiong, it means that he has the ability to reach this level. With such a relatively close relationship with a psychic, plus the original line of involvement of the company's employees, in exchange for the right to remine Skysteel and some military priority in purchasing spacecraft, it seemed to be profitable before, but now it seems that it can be said to be a loss. If it weren't for the factory director and old Wu, the company might even cause Chen Ming's hatred. What material things can compare to a psychic close to Wu Wen's level? The board of directors did make a wrong decision. The few who had clearly opposed it before were basically those who were close to the chairman. So in this situation, the directors who first proposed this proposal must resign. As the last director who proposed the proposal first and took the lead, he must be the first to make the decision to resign. At least this way they can retreat safely. Otherwise, it will be ugly if others are dragged down. One day later, Pirate Space Station. Since Zhujiang and the war zone have already attacked, Chen Ming is not in a hurry to leave as before. Anyway, he didn't feel the danger, and the war zone should not come again in a short time. If they can get 2 more psychics, he will accept it. So Chen Ming simply postponed his departure for a day. Some supplies lost in the previous battle were replenished on the space station. The boss was very considerate and helped Chen Ming replenish the supplies consumed to kill Yen Shtong. Although these materials needed to be sent to the boss's colony due to the large quantity and the need for transportation, Chen Ming transported them himself. But at least the boss saved Chen Ming a lot of money by doing this. Then in addition to the supplies, Chen Ming also went to collect the spoils after winning the battle. There were a total of 4 cruisers, more than 50 destroyers, and more than 200 escorts from the war zone and Zhujiang this time. In the end, not a single one escaped. However, there were only 3 cruisers and about 80% of the small boats left on the pirate space station. And among the 3 cruisers left, the ruler was killed by the concentrated fire of Chen Ming's 5 cruisers and then absorbed by Yen Xiong to form a steel giant. In the end, it exploded and all the materials were fused into lumps. Chen Ming chose to take away the relatively large pieces of materials, and the remaining scattered and difficult to collect ones were left there. He could disassemble these large pieces of materials directly, and he could also get some materials whose properties did not change under high temperature and high pressure, or alloy materials formed by the fusion of various materials. The 2 defenders were not in such a situation. Although they were also sunk by the fleet that rushed over after Chen Ming, at least they were still basically in good condition. Since the sinking of the 2 defenders was mainly due to Chen Ming, if it weren't for Chen Ming, the space station would have no chance to keep them. So, they belonged to Chen Ming. Although the damage was a little serious, Chen Ming was not without materials to repair them. So he directly asked the 3 Afterglow cruisers that came to support to carry the 2 defenders back to the temporary base, and they could be used again after repairs. Of course, Chen Ming still checked the defenders before sending them away. Although large ships must be equipped with a considerable number of escape pods, there are always some people who were left in the sunken ship and are still alive. Chen Ming did not investigate the identities of these people. After getting them out, he directly handed them over to the space station for processing. The important thing is the defender itself. Although it is a company spacecraft, it is basically designed to castrate some excellent functions for mass production. But at least the basics are not missing, and they still have the standard combat power of a cruiser. It's worth taking. Then there are the small boats. Because Chen Ming saw that there was a big gap between him and the Zhujiang fleet on paper, he didn't care about his face and directly used large weapons to sweep and clean up these small boats. The small boats suffered very serious losses, and the kind of losses that could not be recovered. So now there are only about 10 destroyers and more than 30 escorts that are still intact. Some are lucky, and some surrendered directly when they saw the situation was not good. The people above were controlled by the administration and were soon transported away with the people Chen Ming found on the cruiser. No one knew where they were transported to. Chen Ming didn't care about the people, but the spaceships were what he wanted. The fleet he planned to use to hunt pirates had lost 3 ships before it officially set out. Although the losses were on Yen Xiong, it was not a loss. But Chen Ming's fleet strength also dropped a lot in an instant. At least that's what Chen Ming said when he talked to the deputy director about the distribution of spoils. So, he must have new ships to rebuild a suitable fleet. But the space station had contributed before, helping Chen Ming share some of the damage caused by the enemy cruiser's concentrated fire. They must also have a share of the spoils. In the end, the deputy director took the initiative to give in, letting Chen Ming choose what he needed first, and they took the rest. Then Chen Ming was not polite. Among these small spaceships as spoils, some were military models, and some were miscellaneous models. Chen Ming would definitely start with the military models and fill the fleet as much as possible in proportion. So in the end, Chen Ming chose a total of 3 destroyers. 1 military law enforcer, which is the basic model of the special law enforcer designed by the 14th Corps that Chen Ming asked by Quan 4. There are also 2 Scorpion-class ships, which are also the military's own spacecraft models. There is a special device on this type of ship, a net ballistic rangefinder. It can connect to the friendly spacecraft signal, obtain detailed big data on the battlefield, and provide accurate shooting route simulation for live ammunition weapons to achieve the effect of accurate point killing. Although Chen Ming doesn't expect much from the destroyer, but Chen Ming is still quite interested in the new model of spacecraft. Even if the actual effect is not ideal in the end, he has collected the illustrations. No, he has obtained a new spacecraft design for research. Moreover, this net ballistic rangefinder is not only used by the Scorpion itself. Such a special device can also be used to provide ballistic simulation for more advanced spacecraft. So from the actual effect, this is actually an auxiliary type of ship, but its own combat capability is quite good because of the ballistic rangefinder. Then there are frigates. Chen Ming chose 5 Vanguard-class heavy frigates. It has a compact but simple and solid structure. If the Centurion relies on its own damping field, a special device, to obtain the powerful anti-line ability of the frigate, then the Vanguard class relies purely on its own carefully designed armor and structure to resist. Although the design is simple but easy to use, it is enough to guarantee the possibility of survival of the internal personnel to a considerable extent, and even if it is lost after the war, it is very easy to repair again. It can be said to be a low-cost, medium to high-performance spacecraft. What Chen Ming is least afraid of now is loss. These Vanguard-class ships can indeed be used as vanguards in the future. There are also 3 Centurion-class ships, which is nothing to say. The Centurion itself is a very good frigate, which can make up for Chen Ming's previous losses. Finally, there are 7 military Sentinel-class ships to make up for the lack of missile weapons in Chen Ming's fleet. These frigates add up to a total of 14 ships, including 3 destroyers, a total of 17 ships. In general, Chen Ming did not go too far. At least he left some military ships for the space station. Of course, the main reason is that there are only so many ships with light damage, which are fast and convenient to repair. Chen Ming does not have so much energy to salvage those broken spaceships, so he should leave them to the space station to salvage slowly. It can also let Lao Wu do more work. When selecting spaceships, Chen Ming also contacted Bai Quan. Bai Chuan's efficiency is relatively low, and only the escorts and destroyers are in place among the promised spaceships. 4 Storm-class ships that can best demonstrate Chen Ming's strength, and a special model of the 14th Legion Law Enforcer with the strongest anti-line ability among destroyers. In small-scale combat, it can definitely exert a considerable degree of combat effectiveness. Together with the spoils of war spaceships that Chen Ming took away, he organized them into the fleet that he left in the Empire later. It was not easy for Chen Ming to control this fleet all the time. So he chose Gamma B, who ran away from Yuhui, as the commander of this fleet and handed it over to it to handle all matters. And this fleet, which only Chen Ming had before and the spaceships given by Bai Quan, has already taken shape. 1 armor-piercing ship, 5 hammerheads, 1 14th Legion Enforcer, 5 rainstorms, and 1 fighter modification. A total of 7 destroyers and 6 escorts. If you count the fleet that Chen Ming added this time, then it is a small and medium-sized fleet of 10 destroyers and 20 escorts, which is exactly 30 ships. Then you can add 2 more ships. After all, the number of ships in the fleet has increased, so it is best to prepare 2 logistics ships like other normal fleets. A cargo ship transports fleet supplies, and a fuel ship transports fuel. Of course, it doesn't mean that Chen Ming can't use psychic energy to replenish supplies. It's just that if his mental power runs out one day, or if something happens and he can't get away, at least he can't let the fleet be without supplies. But the cargo ship can actually be discarded. After all, there is no one on Chen Ming's ship, and the internal space is basically empty. Each ship can be used as a partial cargo ship. But since Chen Ming has a mule-class ship parked on the space station before, it must be used. It would be a waste to keep it there. Before, Chen Ming needed the mule as an anchor to send the things he needed back to the space station. But now that he has controlled the number 6 space arm of the space station, such a space arm full of power generation facilities, he can do a lot of things here, so he doesn't need to keep the mule in the dock. But fuel is better to be carried by a special fuel ship. After all, it is very dangerous if this thing is left randomly without a special safe storage method. So in the end, what Chen Ming left behind in the Empire was a fleet of 32 ships, as well as armor-piercing, 14th Legion Law Enforcers, and Storm-class ships with extremely strong combat capabilities. In the marginal star field, if you don't provoke the military and the official, you can almost walk sideways. It's a pity. At present, the cruiser Baiquan, which is more important to Chen Ming, has not been delivered yet, and the chilling nerve has not been delivered either. It can only be said that after all, the cruiser and the chilling nerve are delivered slowly, which is normal. Chen Ming must not have been able to deliver it before departure. However, since his mental power can now support the control of the cruiser. That is to say, as long as a Gamma-class afterglow controlled by him touches the Baiquan cruiser, he can control the cruiser while protecting the Gamma individual from being burned by overloaded data. So Chen Ming also left 2 Gamma individuals with the boss, one of which can be sent to Baiquan later. At that time, Chen Ming can just control one and drive the ship away by himself. Chen Ming is very much looking forward to the performance of the Stardust-class cruiser mothership. Of course, Chen Ming got more than just the bad news that the cruisers and the Qiling nerve had not arrived from Baiquan. After Chen Ming finished talking with the deputy director and left the administration building, Baiquan also told Chen Ming a good news. I know someone in the war zone, and he told me that the high-level officials in the war zone who had conflicts with you were taken away. And it was not an internal review of the war zone, but people from above took them away directly. Chen Ming was quite curious about this and said hurriedly, "Tell me more about it." The main reason is that their cooperation with Zhujiang this time involves too much, especially those cruisers. There is a problem with the source of these ships. The Ruler is a ship that was originally planned to be retired in the war zone because the model was too old. Generally speaking, there are 2 places for retired ships, one of which is to dismantle recycling. The materials are used to build new ships. This Ruler was originally going to be dismantled. But I don't know where the problem occurred. The ship disappeared. The war zone has been tracking it down. And then you saw it. It fell into Zhujiang's hands. The 2 defenders are spaceships sold by Xinda Company normally, and they have the order form provided by the war zone. But there is no such list in the war zone. Of course, it is not the problem of Xinda Company. It was purchased privately by someone in the war zone in the name of the military with the help of connections. This is not a big deal in general, but it is related to the disappearance of the Ruler before, and the problem may be it's a big deal. The Last Eagle has the biggest problem. It's also a retired ship, but it uses a different method of dealing with retired ships. Generally, this is done for ships that have made achievements. That is, the fire control system of the ship is dismantled and thrown into the museum. No, the ship should be used directly as a museum. It is used to record the past of this eagle and the achievements of the soldiers on it. It is used to promote the army and recruit soldiers. Then, this ship also disappeared and appeared here. So it is mainly because of these situations that the people in the war zone stayed. There is substantial evidence, which led to their arrest. There are definitely more people involved than just those who have a grudge against you. A lot of people will definitely be eliminated. Baiquan finished a long paragraph in one breath, and then said with some sigh, "I didn't expect that even if they dispatched 4 cruisers to fight against your 2, they couldn't gain an advantage, and finally ended up running away in panic. Your ability is really amazing." Chen Ming didn't lose his mind because of Baiquan's flattery, and asked calmly, "In short, it means that everyone who has a grudge against me has been imprisoned, right?" "Yes. That's good. But there is still one thing I don't understand. Since Zhujiang was hired by the war zone, why did the war zone build a space station? And why did they use the defenders sold by the company? You're bored and you want to provoke another Xinda company? The company is still developing, but it is also a giant in other places." Baiquan said as if he knew the matter very well. "Then we have to mention the situation of the war zone and Zhujiang. First of all, there is one thing you have to know. Contacting Zhujiang is like seeking the skin of a tiger, and it is a tiger that has just crawled out of the sewer. If you are not careful, you will not only be attacked, but also get into trouble. Your company has recently arranged a director for the space station, and he has conflicts with you, right?" Chen Ming responded, "Yes, I caught him back. Interrogation in progress." "Okay, then I'll tell you directly and briefly. The war zone took the initiative to contact your director, and they agreed to kill you. But what the director didn't expect was that the war zone didn't do it themselves. but pushed someone out to take the blame, and then asked the scapegoat to find Zhuijing. Zhuijing also agreed, and the war zone helped him sneak into the space station. It really met the requirements of the war zone. First try to kill you, and if you can't kill you, force you out and let the fleet deal with it. You know what happened outside the space station? But inside the space station, Zhuijing completed what they promised, and it can be said that they are very credible. But later, they began to play freely. Free play? Very vivid. Chen Ming's casual complaint made by Quan shrug his shoulders and continue. Carry out terrorist attacks in the space station, blow up important facilities in the space station, and publicize their existence. Use the funding of the war zone to achieve their own goals, and at the same time drag the people in the war zone into the sewer. In the end, they were reported by someone. The specific reporter has not been investigated yet, and it should not be investigated. You can also see that if this matter continues to ferment, the war zone will be swollen. The reporter reported it in time, so the higher-ups handled it quickly, and the department that received the report will definitely protect this person. Let's not talk about anything else, just my side. My fleet just stopped the eagle that escaped, and then I got a call from above. It was called directly from my hometown, asking me to cooperate. What else can I do? I just cooperate honestly. That's basically it. Chen Ming digested what Bai Quan said, and couldn't help but said, "Do you know so much? I have caught the director of the department involved. Why is the news not as fast as yours?" It's natural. Even if the company's people are of good quality in the marginal star field and can be said to be a militia, they are definitely not as professional as us. That's right. Chen Ming nodded, thinking about the meaning of Bai Quan's words. In fact, after he knew the news, the whole thing was connected. Knowing the truth, he no longer paid too much attention. Anyway, the matter is over. But Chen Ming finally told Bai Quan, "If there is a trial one day, remember to tell me the result." Bai Quan hesitated for a moment and finally said, according to the most likely scenario, "You may be a little disappointed. The death penalty should not be necessary." In fact, Chen Ming did not want people to die. As long as they pay the due price, I will find a way if they cannot pay it. Is it really okay for you to say this to a major general? It's okay. I still say that you can't stop me. In this era, everything can be lacking, but spacecraft cannot be lacking. This is the situation that will inevitably result from the specialization of planets for productivity. To be honest, even if I kill a criminal, will I be in trouble? And even if I don't say it, if you let me know that those who conflicted with me did not pay enough, what do you think I would do? Although we haven't met yet, you should know me well. Chen Ming knew very well that since Bai Quan could guess the effect of his psychic power so many times, he must have a considerable understanding of him. Bai Quan did not respond to Chen Ming's question. Obviously, he would not ruin his relationship with Chen Ming for a few prisoners who had quite a lot of conflicts with him. He chose to skip the previous topic and brought up the previously agreed matter. By the way, are you very busy recently? Can you arrange some time to prepare for the formal fleet command training? Chen Ming did not force Bai Quan to answer the previous question and took the opportunity to shift to the topic raised by Bai Quan and said, "I should have a lot of free time in the next period of time, but you have to wait for me for 2 or 3 days. No problem, then you go ahead and do your work. Contact me when you are free. I will give you a schedule. Then if you have time, remember to do some physical exercise every day. Physical strength is also a very important point in command, and you can't fall behind. If you really lack time, you can choose to reduce some of it, but a psychic I know said that the physical fitness of a psychic will also affect his use of psychic power." Well, I remember. After making an agreement with Bai Quan, Chen Ming didn't say anything more. Hang up the communication. During the time Chen Ming stayed on the space station, he confirmed with Lao Wu about the subsequent delivery of industrial equipment and research equipment, as well as the pirates. Lao Wu has already determined the person who will take over the pirate captives, or the pirate corpses, or only a video of the battle with the pirates. After Chen Ming kills a pirate, he can hand it over to that person. Chen Ming's money will soon increase slowly. It's mainly about fighting to support the war. As long as Chen Ming doesn't blow up the spaceship and doesn't miss, he will definitely not lose. All things are done. Chen Ming can't hold back anymore and immediately climbs to the highest point. Start the control system of the spaceship and determine the destination. His first destination was clear, which was where his afterglow fleet was temporarily stationed. In addition, Chen Ming asked Bai Quan to help cover up the traces of his upcoming jump to prevent anyone from tracking his location. When Chen Ming's several afterglow cruisers were exposed before, Bai Quan must have understood what he was going to do next. So now Bai Quan also agreed very readily. Chen Ming took the initiative to control the High Point and the Brilliant class to leave the pirate space station and come to the outside of the galaxy. After waiting here for a while, he met a cruiser from the 14th Legion and immediately started the jump engine. Gradually disappeared into the starry sky. After the jump began, Chen Ming couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the universe with only countless colorful lines left because of the jump. He didn't know how long it would take to come back after this trip, but reality wouldn't give him too much time. The jump was over soon. In a blink of an eye, Chen Ming arrived at the location where his Yuhui fleet was staying. That was the galaxy where Chen Ming's refraction ship had found a planet with signs of biological existence and an atmosphere that was poisonous to humans. Chen Ming's Yuhui were not on the poisonous planet at this time, but on another barren planet in the habitable zone of the galaxy. Even if a planet in the habitable zone has no atmosphere, its own environment and temperature changes will be relatively gentle. It can be said that it is quite suitable for Yuhui to stay here. Through the sensor at the highest point, Chen Ming could see that the Yuhui here were not doing nothing in the past few days before he came, but had already started to be busy. On the surface of the planet, they used the materials they brought from Yuhui to build a temporary base. Of course not a colony, because Chen Ming's goal is to find a good enough galaxy first and then build a colony. This means that there may be a long period of time before Chen Ming and these Yuhui can settle down in one place. In the period before the colony has been selected, it is impossible to let all the Yuhui wait for him to find a colony. That would be too inefficient. So it is better for these Yuhui to do something in advance in the process of finding a colony. Then a base that can support these Yuhui individuals to do things is necessary. This matter has been prepared when Hui Huang and Hui Yao jumped dozens of times and sent Yuhui and materials over. All the materials that can build a small base have been unpacked from the piled-up material storage points and piled up in a separate place. The amount of prepared materials can even build several bases. Although Hui Huang, who is responsible for this work, has been following him, Hui Huang can also command the Yuhui here to work from a distance. And Chen Ming can also help it and several other alpha-level Yuhui to contact each other. Although the other alpha afterglows are not specifically responsible for the work planning on this planet, but their computing power is here. As long as there is a command, it is undoubtedly very simple for these alpha-level afterglows to calculate the actual layout according to the command. And the functions required for this base are not complicated. It is enough to build a most basic starport with functions such as parking spacecraft, repairing spacecraft, and material transportation. As long as it can be used as a base for sending spacecraft to surrounding galaxies to conduct galaxy data surveys. Because now, what these afterglow individuals controlled by Chen Ming have to do is to help him determine whether there are valuable galaxies in the area around the base. However, although a small base has begun to be built here, but the location of the last base that is of practical significance to Chen Ming is not here. Unpacking the materials in advance is just for easy access, and they can be quickly sorted out after transportation. The temporary base and starport built here are just a transit station, or one of many transit stations. Chen Ming cannot build a colony so close to the Empire that it can be reached by a jump at the extreme distance. His colony must be built in the farther and deeper starry sky. That's why he would build such a starport first. He needs this starport as a basis to let a cruiser carry some supplies and equipment and the ship of the individual Yuhui to make the next extreme distance jump. After the next jump, he will find a suitable planet to build a new temporary base and build another starport. Then explore valuable galaxies in the spherical area around the starport again. Although it is difficult to find a suitable galaxy at this distance, the probability is very low. And even if a suitable galaxy is found, Chen Ming will not choose to settle there and build a colony. But it doesn't mean that he will gain nothing by doing so. After all, the data of the galaxy can also be sold at a high price, and the boss has mentioned this before. If Chen Ming can really find a galaxy that is too close for him to colonize, but is also good, the boss may be interested. Even if there is really no galaxy with colonization value within this distance close to the Empire, that doesn't mean that it can't be explored. The starry sky is so big, there will always be many valuable things. For example, Chen Ming did not expect that his refractive power could fly to a place with several valuable planets by using unstable jump engines. So we have to explore. If we find it, we will not suffer any loss. If we don't find it, we can just take it as Chen Ming's experience accumulation. The next exploration will definitely go more smoothly. According to Chen Ming's plan, during the exploration around the second transfer point, he will continue to arrange the third jump, build the third transfer point, and then continue to follow this plan. Chen Ming feels that he will have to make at least 7 or 8, or even more than 10 extreme distance jumps before he can safely find a real colony location. The afterglow in his hand will definitely not support so many transfer points. So after the exploration of the previous transfer points is completed, these transfer points will gradually transfer the materials and the transfer points themselves to the transfer points built later, and leave for the outer star field. Like a necklace with only a few pearls gradually extending out. That is, at that time, the highest point will be of practical use. The role of the cruiser-class exploration ship is to open up hyperspace channels in unknown areas. As long as everything goes well, then after Chen Ming's first few jumps, he will reach those areas that are quite far from the border of the Empire and have never been set foot on. Unlike in the Empire, there are no people dealing with hyperspace channel clouds all the time. Therefore, the overflowing channel clouds will cover the hyperspace channels that are naturally generated between galaxies due to the influence of gravity wells, causing the hyperspace channels to be blocked. The Supreme Point needs to artificially open channels between different galaxies again, and find a safe way to the next galaxy in the hyperspace channel clouds with thunder and lightning. It is convenient for subsequent ships to investigate different galaxies without flying slowly in the universe. Then, after the channel is opened, the following ships confirm which galaxies opened by the Supreme Point are worth detailed investigation, and then go back to start the function of in-depth investigation. This will definitely be a long process. Everything has just begun. It has only been 4 or 5 days since Chen Ming came out of Yuhui, and he is not in a hurry at all. His ships are not complete yet, and there is another Stardust-class ship behind. In fact, there is not much he can do in this whole process except for the initial planning. At most, Chen Ming will provide fuel transportation for outgoing spacecraft and the next temporary base, so that the spacecrafts running around can maintain fuel consumption. Also, when looking for the temporary base for the next jump, you need to choose carefully. It is best to choose a planet with gas giants or other resources where you can collect fuel or build some basic industrial equipment. Help him relieve the pressure on funds and mental power consumption. Chen Ming doesn't need to think too much about other things. Anyway, whether you can find a suitable planet depends on fate, and giving orders to so many spacecraft in Yuhui depends on brilliance. As long as Chen Ming completes the planned tasks, he can only wait except for using psychic power. So near the border of the Empire, the cloud density of the hyperspace channel is not too high, and the highest point does not need to take action. Chen Ming still has time to do what he wants to do. For example, exercise mental power, learn command from Baiquan, and study various technologies, especially cruiser-level technologies. Or, go to the planet where the mechanical race exists that Chu Guang investigated before. Chu Guang, who had turned into a ball and was eaten by Yin Xiong, had discovered several valuable planets by the way when Chen Ming was testing the unstable hyperspace channel jump engine. One of them was a habitable planet with mechanical races. At that time, Chu Guang Chen Ming only controlled a brief investigation of the general situation on the planet. He did not dare to stay for long and ran away to prevent those suspected dormant mechanical races from getting up and destroying Chu Guang. Although it was just a simple investigation, Chen Ming could also confirm that the number of mechanical races on that planet was not large. The buildings belonging to the mechanical race were probably only the size of a city. I just don't know if there are more mechanical races underground. However, Chen Ming felt that he could go over and try. See if there is anything valuable in this mechanical race city. If he can really find a device similar to the Qiling neural extractor, it will definitely be a bloody profit. And Chen Ming is not afraid that the mechanical race will come to trouble him. If he can't beat him, he can just run towards the Empire. Anyway, his current location is not far from the Empire, and Chen Ming doesn't feel ashamed to run back. After going around the Empire, the mechanical race behind him will definitely be finished, and he doesn't have to worry about being tracked. And there is another advantage to doing this. That is, Chen Ming can confirm whether his ability can control these mechanical races in his hands. So how to enter or attack this city is obviously a problem that needs to be considered. Direct bombing from orbit may be a good choice, but this obviously requires the use of cruisers. The Supreme Point is not a combat ship, so fighting should be handled by other ships. In addition, for his own safety, Chen Ming should be accompanied by Yu Hui and the fleet at other times except for this trip to the mechanical clan. So Chen Ming had to think about which Yu Hui to go with him to the mechanical clan. Then first he needed to confirm the situation of the Yu Hui cores he had, especially the Alpha-class Yu Hui. At present, Chen Ming does not control many Yu Hui personally. 3 of them were originally Gamma-class, and now they have been upgraded to Beta-class Gamma A, Gamma B, and Gamma Z. 5 Alpha-class, the Alpha-class Yu Hui given by Hui Huang, Hui Yao, by Quan, and the Alpha-class Yu Hui he snatched from Yu Hui's giant dock. There is also the Alpha core on the Flash class that has no sense of existence. Beta-class Yu Hui does not need to be considered without the core bonus of Chen Ming's psychic energy. Moreover, Gamma A has been in a temporary station and has a special relationship with Hui Yao, so it is not easy for Chen Ming to separate them. So he didn't plan to assign tasks to Gamma A directly for the time being. Let Hui Yao take care of it. At most he would keep it busy and do some simple tasks such as assisting in transportation. Then Gamma B had been to the pirate space station before and was controlled by Chen Ming, so there were obvious traces left in Yu Hui. So it withdrew with Hui Huang before, and is currently in charge of the command of the small and medium-sized fleet that Chen Ming left in the Empire. As for Gamma Z, it had no trace of contact with Chen Ming, and it still stayed in Yu Hui, passing back some information about Yu Hui to Chen Ming. And the massacre and blockade that was going on in Yu Hui throughout the star field did not affect it. It can only be said that Yu Hui has no effective way to deal with Chen Ming's matter. They have no effective way to determine which individuals are controlled by Chen Ming. They can only suspect which individuals have had contact with Chen Ming through Chen Ming's social circle. If there are any of these individuals who are willing to hibernate, they will hibernate and be controlled uniformly. If they are unwilling, there is only one result, and they will be forcibly dealt with. Even if these individuals are not actually controlled by Chen Ming in the end, but have their own ideas for development, do not want to hibernate, and do not want to stagnate for hundreds of years, there will be no difference in treatment. The Yu Hui senior management can be said to be quite rational in this matter. Perhaps it is because of Chen Ming's existence that they have fallen into madness. Chen Ming is not very clear about more, and the only information he knows about the Yu Hui is what Gamma Z provides. At present, he is still not very capable of managing the affairs in Yu Hui. He can only let the remaining Yu Hui that he controls and has not been affected try their best to hide themselves and wait for future opportunities. Now Chen Ming still has to pay attention to his own affairs and confirm the situation of the remaining Alpha-class Yu Hui, so that he can do what he wants. Among Chen Ming's 5 Alpha-class Yu Hui at present, Brilliant and the Alpha Yu Hui with the name code 2 UAA1, Mazaks that he robbed from the Yu Hui giant dock before, Chen Ming has confirmed their abilities, both of which are logistics types. One is galaxy planning, industrial production. One is scientific research, technological development. Since he is too lazy to remember such a long string of codes, Chen Ming decided to call the latter one Xiao Tu in the future. There are still the abilities of Brilliance, Flash, and the other Alpha core given by Baiquan that need to be confirmed. The Alpha core given by Baiquan is still dormant. It needs to contact Chen Ming's spiritual energy after activation to have the bonus displayed on the panel. So now, Chen Ming simply connects it directly to the highest point. Although the energy consumption to maintain the operation of an alpha-level core is not a small amount, an activated alpha core is much more valuable than this little consumption. Then when Chen Ming opened its panel, its panel immediately changed compared to before. Afterglow Alpha AI Core, HRYY1, APGU. Manufacturer, Afterglow B01 Colony near Earth Orbit Industrial Facility. Alpha Core Bonus, Energy Focusing Effect. Self-awareness, existence. Computing power, star region level. Executable operations, none. In fact, it can be seen from the manufacturer before that the alpha afterglow given by Baiquan is not the afterglow of this star region. And Chen Ming can roughly guess what type of core Baiquan will give. Now that Chen Ming actually sees the core bonus on the panel, he is sure that, as he guessed, this alpha afterglow is a combat type. It may be the afterglow individual captured by Baiquan in a battle. The core bonus brought by its advantage logic block is also very real. Improve the computing power when energy weapons are actually used. Although it sounds useless, no matter how difficult the weapon is to use, it does not require too many cumbersome operations. Especially for laser-type energy weapons, the most important operation is aiming. However, in reality, although low-level energy weapons are indeed like this, there is no special need for special operation and calculation. However, since Chen Ming has the existence of the top large energy weapons such as the tachyon spear, he knows that large energy weapons are more complicated than small and medium-sized energy weapons. Because energy weapons themselves are a kind of weapon that is easily disturbed by the environment, and the environment on the battlefield can be said to be as chaotic as it can be. Therefore, when using large energy weapons, we must find ways to adapt to complex environments. According to changes in the external environment, the output frequency of energy weapons is slightly adjusted. As long as the use of energy weapons can be adapted to the environment, the loss of energy weapon range can be reduced. If the consumption is reduced, the effect of increasing the power of weapons in a practical sense can be achieved in disguise. This is a very difficult thing to do, because the amount of calculation required is too large, and there are too many influences that can cause slight deviations in the use of energy weapons. This makes it difficult to do this in normal combat. Even if someone or a computer can do it, it can only eliminate part of the interference to energy weapons at most. The actual effect is not obvious and unnecessary. However, the core bonus of this alpha afterglow is refined to the computing power of energy weapons for external interference, and the actual effect is about 100%. In other words, in the precise control of energy weapons, this alpha afterglow can have twice the computing power, with 2 alpha-level cores helping to calculate. Such an exaggerated increase has a significant bonus for calculating the use environment of energy weapons. The actual effect of amplifying energy weapons must be quite obvious. Chen Ming continued to open the other core bonus capabilities that can be selected on the panel. There are 8 in total: stand coordination, impact mitigation, radiation energy regulation, steering technology, target analysis, coordinated maneuvering, and combat endurance. Among them, the effect of stand coordination is similar to the energy focusing effect of this alpha core itself. It's just that it's accurate to the shield. When it is activated by the same shield generator, it can have a stronger shield damage-bearing effect than other afterglows. Impact mitigation. This ability can improve the ship's shield closure and the ship's control calculation power when using armor to face enemy attacks. When facing an attack, adjust the armor's impact surface through subtle movements that do not affect the overall ship's movement, and reduce the actual damage caused by the enemy's attack to the ship's armor. Although Chen Ming's expected operation is a bit exaggerated, but this is also a reasonable guess when he sees that this extremely refined ability will have a 200% computing power bonus after the addition. Radiation energy adjustment can improve the computing power when controlling its own power grid system. It allows Afterglow to finely distribute radiation energy to different nodes inside the ship's power grid. Accelerate the dissipation of radiation energy, and at the same time, when the radiation energy is overloaded, minimize the damage caused by the overload to the ship itself. Steering technology. This ability can improve the computing power when controlling the ship. It is a simple and crude ability, but it is definitely the most important ability for Yu Hui, who relies on the existence of various spacecraft. Target analysis can improve the computing power of analyzing the situation of the main target in battle. Coordinated operations is an ability that is biased towards battlefield command. In combat endurance, this is the first time Chen Ming has seen an ability with two effects. It can improve the computing power of ship logistics material control when controlling ships in battle. At the same time, it can also improve its own computing power for wartime maintenance of equipment. It is a bit biased towards logistics. The specific effect should be that every piece of military equipment can be used accurately in every key place. Reduce unnecessary consumption of armaments and increase the time to maintain the best combat readiness and have the strongest combat power in high-intensity battles. After all, the spacecraft will inevitably consume military equipment in battle, and the longer the battle time, the greater the consumption. At the same time, various equipment and devices of the ship will also suffer non-combat damage due to high-intensity combat. Combat endurance can improve the ability to inspect and repair these equipment and prevent failures in advance. Just look at the first 7. Chen Ming can confirm that this alpha-level Afterglow individual is an individual with excellent combat capabilities and energy weapon control system. It has an enhanced radiation control system, as well as all-round enhancements to shields and armor, and even has the ability to command a certain scale of battlefield. It is simply a perfect combat individual. And these abilities are not added by Chen Ming to exist. Instead, Chen Ming can only add additional abilities when these abilities exist. As for the 8th and final ability, its selection box is different from the previous 7 abilities, and it flashes with a special golden color. Elite Individual unconditionally increases computing power by 10%. In addition, Chen Ming can add 2 additional core bonuses. When he saw the 4 glittering words Elite Individual, Chen Ming immediately called Bai Quan. Bai Quan picked up the phone a little later and asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong with the fleet I sent?" Chen Ming glanced at the words displayed on the panel again and said, "No, everything is going well here. Just want to ask, where did you get the Alpha Afterglow core you gave me before?" Bai Quan instantly understood why Chen Ming called and replied, "It was on the battleship. It was taken from the one I destroyed when I was promoted to Major General. It has been in my hands." This sentence made Chen Ming subconsciously ask, "Didn't you take it away?" Bai Quan explained, "All combat-type alpha-level afterglows, especially those that can control battleships, have been captured by us and Afterglow after so many years. But even if they are captured, none of these afterglows will surrender. Of course, they will not commit suicide, but will enter hibernation on their own initiative. Even if you wake it up, it will continue to hibernate, not conflicting with you, nor cooperating with you. So the combat-type alpha-level Afterglow core is actually not that important. I don't need one for research, so I kept it as a souvenir, and others are willing to give me face. Before, when I heard you say you wanted an alpha core, I thought that your ability should be able to control it, so I gave it to you. If there is any problem, I will change it for you." "No, thank you. I have something to do now, let's talk later." Chen Ming was satisfied with the answer and hung up the phone after thanking him. Only Bai Quan was left to think. Thinking about the meaning of Chen Ming's call, Bai Quan was sure that Chen Ming suddenly called him because Chen Ming had just confirmed the specialness of the core he had given out. An alpha-level Afterglow core that can control a battleship must be significantly different from other ordinary alpha-level cores. It is even possible that Chen Ming directly relied on psychic power to make this core say its specialness. And this means that even if Chen Ming does not have his command teaching in the future, there will be an alpha-level Afterglow that can control the battleship and conduct combat command to guide him, and even directly help him fight. Bai Quan personally killed the battleship of the alpha-level Afterglow, and he knew the ability of the Afterglow very well. At least in the past, this Afterglow was definitely stronger than him, and he also used a tricky method to win. Even if he has been improving, after a few years, he is only a little stronger than this Alpha Afterglow at most, and there is no obvious advantage. Originally, Bai Quan just wanted Chen Ming to have an Alpha core, and he happened to have one in his hand, so he gave it to him directly. Unexpectedly, the thing he gave away would actually compete with him later. This is not okay. Chen Ming is now out to explore, and there should be no chance of contact for a long time in the future. Only when he delivers the cruiser and the chilling nerve and teaches command can he contact Chen Ming. Bai Quan cannot let the Yu Wei core interfere with the only thing that can keep him in touch with Chen Ming for a long time. He absolutely cannot let his relationship with Chen Ming fade away. It seems that he has to be busy himself. At this time, Chen Ming was a little excited and looked at the panel again. He suddenly found that in addition to the core bonus, the changes on the panel actually also changed the computing power. The computing power of this alpha core has changed from the previous galaxy level to the star district level. It should have reached the limit of galaxy computing power before. Then with the assistance provided by Chen Ming, it was improved to the star district level. Hui Huang said before that in addition to providing it with the core bonus, Chen Ming will also have a slight overall computing power bonus. This bonus is more metaphysical and very special. According to Hui Huang, this effect is enhanced with the change of time. It seems that the longer Chen Ming's psychic power affects it, the more overall bonus he gets. Although the magnitude of this change is not linear, this assumption is a bit untenable, but it is a reasonable speculation. At the beginning, the total bonus obtained by Hui Huang was about 3% to 4%, but with the change of time, Hui Huang can now get a computing power increase of about 9%. Chen Ming also asked several other alpha-level afterglows he controlled. Hui Yao was 7%, Xiao Tu, who was responsible for research, was 5%, and Flash, who escaped from the main battleship, was 3%, which was a very metaphysical number. Chen Ming didn't know what the situation was. After all, it stands to reason that Flash should get more bonus than Xiao Tu. But no matter what, there must be a bonus. The alpha core in Chen Ming's hand should have increased its computing power to the star zone level with this bonus. This is also the reason why Chen Ming did not see the difference between this core and other alpha cores from the panel before. Whether an alpha core can control a battleship and whether it is an elite individual should depend on whether it has reached the limit of the star system level. I can only say that this is really an unexpected gain. Baichuan's things are really reliable. The alpha level afterglow that can control the battleship makes people feel happy no matter how they look at it. Then there is nothing to choose from the additional bonus that Chen Ming can add this time. Elite individual is a must. But it can't be now. At least Chen Ming has to wait until he finishes what he is going to do next and waits until he rests to add additional bonuses. Then Chen Ming also has to give this alpha core a name. Because its original code name was HRYY1, APGU2, which is a bit long. After thinking for a while, Chen Ming looked at the first two letters of its code name and decided on its name, which is HR. At this time, Chen Ming also found that HR had completely awakened from hibernation and connected to the supreme control system. Like before, he habitually greeted the newly controlled afterglow individual, "Hello?" HR did not reply to Chen Ming through the supreme communication equipment, but there was only a long silence. Chen Ming opened the panel and took a look, confirming that HR was not damaged, so he said again, "Are you okay?" HR was silent again for a while, and finally squeezed out two words, "Not good." The scene in front of him suddenly made Chen Ming feel a little déjà vu. It was as if he had just found Gamma Z on the rainstorm when he first got it. However, Gamma Z has been in the human environment for many years and adapted quickly when he met Chen Ming. But HR is obviously different. Chen Ming can understand it. Bai Quan just said that afterglow individuals of the alpha-level combat type usually take the initiative to enter hibernation after being captured, and they may never wake up. As a result, HR suddenly woke up that day and found that he had been tricked by Chen Ming, and he had no ability to resist. Whoever comes will feel uncomfortable. Chen Ming guessed that HR should be more or less autistic. It seems that he will have to ask the other Alpha Yue to talk to it, and it would be best to find Hui Huang to instill Hui Huang's ideas into HR. By the way, let Hui Huang help convey the meaning of Chen Ming calling it HR in the future. Chen Ming still attaches great importance to the Yahui that he controls personally and will not force it under normal circumstances. Anyway, HR's core has been affected by his psychic power. As long as he is alive, HR will not be able to escape. He has plenty of time to slowly and naturally straighten out the relationship in the future. HR looks very powerful, and its actual combat power should be stronger after it has a suitable spaceship. But Chen Ming has no plan to take it to the mechanical tribe. After all, this is the strongest combat power he has at present. So it is better to use it to protect this temporary base full of Chen Ming's entire fortune. And HR is still autistic now. Unless Chen Ming forces an order, he should not follow him out. Again, he didn't want to use too strong means to communicate with any Yuhui that he personally controlled. It's better to wait and see the situation. See if Hui Huang can persuade it to surrender, and then change it to the refraction class. This heavy cruiser should be the ship that Chen Ming has the best HR capabilities at present. As for Xiao Tu, who has research capabilities on refraction, he should be transferred to another ship first, or simply to Chen Ming's Supreme Point. At least there are some research equipment available on the Supreme Point. Xiao Tu usually has almost nothing to do in the temporary station, so it's better to help Chen Ming share some of the pressure of driving the ship out and do something with the scattered research equipment on the ship. After deciding on the HR arrangement, Chen Ming continued to look at Hui Yao's panel. In fact, he had seen it before, but it doesn't matter if he looks at it again now. Yuhui Alpha AI Core, Hui Yao. Manufacturer, Yuhui BP, 55 Colony Far North Industrialized Production Center. Alpha Core Bonus, Target Analysis. Self-awareness, Existence. Computing Power, Galaxy Level. Executable Operations, None. This time, Chen Ming was stunned when he saw the same name Target Analysis on the Core Bonus. No wonder he always felt familiar when he looked at the HR panel just now. He always felt that there was a bonus option that he had just seen recently, but the impression was not too deep. As a result, he now found out that it was the core bonus of Hui Yao next to it. Chen Ming suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. After all, it was Hui Yao's own advantage logic block, but in the end, it was mastered by other individuals. This always made him feel a bit weird, but it didn't have much impact. HR can learn the ability of target analysis to the extent that it appears on the panel. Then Hui Yao can theoretically learn and master HR's energy focusing effect, a technology for using energy weapons, to the same extent, and then Chen Ming can also add the energy focusing effect to Hui Yao. Hui Yao's 6 additional abilities are quite special. They are ship maneuvering, maneuvering command, system expertise, navigation technology, high-precision sensing, and extreme fire control. From here, it can be seen that although Hui Yao is a combat-type afterglow individual, his actual combat ability is completely different from that of HR. Instead, it is similar to Chen Ming's previous guess, with the ability of a ranger-like mobile combat. Its first 2 abilities, ship maneuvering and maneuvering command, can improve the maneuvering combat capability of the spacecraft it controls and the fleet under its command, which is the basis for it as a ranger. The third system, expertise, will affect his ability to use the special system of the spacecraft. Special systems refer to special devices carried by different spacecraft. For example, the Brilliant class ship is equipped with a plasma reserve system and has 2 subsystems: plasma burst propulsion and plasma weaponization entanglement. Another example is the Centurion, which Chen Ming lost 2 ships the day before. Its damping position is also a special system. This ability can enhance the efficiency of using these special devices. However, although the Brilliant class is a different specific model of spacecraft under the same template as the Brilliant class, but the Brilliant's own system is not completely a plasma system. Instead, the plasma weaponization entanglement is removed, and the plasma burst propulsion is retained. And another special secondary engine system that can improve mobility in a certain sense is installed. The actual effect is also very simple, that is, the second jump engine. It allows it to run around with the fleet more frequently. Although Chen Ming can repair the engine of the spacecraft, quickly cool the jump engine and make the next jump. However, the secondary engine is not meaningless to him. It takes time to repair the jump engine. If someone catches this repair time, Chen Ming may still be in danger. But the 2 engines are different. The actual effect is the same as when Chen Ming flew Yin Xiong's kite in Brilliance and Supreme Point. It can completely repair the engine that made the last jump in one jump. It can make jumps continuously without any gaps. The maneuverability is definitely first class, and it is the one to escape. The following navigation technology and high-precision sensor are the abilities that Hui Yao uses to quickly lock the enemy. They all start to run around as rangers. If they cannot quickly locate the destination and lock the enemy, the rangers will be meaningless. The last, extreme fire control, is the most useful ability that Chen Ming thinks Hui Yao has mastered. It can improve the calculation ability when using weapons, improve the ability to shoot accurately when using weapons, and can improve the power and range of weapons when they actually hit to a certain extent. Hui Yao's ability is indeed good, and it can meet most of its needs when performing tasks. But it can't meet Chen Ming's current needs. Hui Yao's abilities are all acquired for guerrilla warfare, and such abilities mean that it is not easy to escort Chen Ming, nor is it easy to carry out battles similar to offensive attacks. Before, when Hui Yao attacked the pirate space station with 2 cruisers, he was chased back. It was not until later that other individuals took over the command on his behalf that the small military outpost was taken down. Chen Ming knew what level Hui Yao's offensive ability was, and he was not going to fight guerrilla warfare now, but to attack a planet with mechanical races. So it was meaningless for Hui Yao to increase Chen Ming's escapability as in the past. If he couldn't escape with 2 cruisers, it would actually be meaningless to have one more Hui Yao class. It's better to stay. When the investigation begins, the ships that go out will definitely encounter a lot of trouble. If they can handle it themselves, then let the Yuhui individuals who go out to explore handle it themselves. But if they can't handle it, then the support mission will have to be handed over to Hui Yao. Finally, there is the situation of flashing. Yuhui Alpha Class AI Core, flashing, manufacturer, Yuhui B-01 Colony Near Earth Orbit Industrial Facility. Alpha Class Core Bonus, fast repair. Self-awareness, existence. Computing power, galaxy level. Executable operations, none. It was a bit surprising that the core bonus of flashing was not a combat type. However, it is reasonable to cooperate with the unmanned cruiser carrier of the Flash class that it drives. And it can add 5 abilities. They are point defense specialization, missile specialization, aircraft carrier cluster, auxiliary positioning, and electronic countermeasures. Judging from its abilities, it is also a combat type Alpha Afterglow, but it is more inclined to defense and protection. In fact, this can be seen from the fact that it was stationed at the border between Afterglow and the mechanical clan territory at the beginning. In the case that Afterglow obviously does not want to continue to expand, the border must be placed with a strong defensive ability, and there will not be too many offensive individuals here. But at this time, it is not easy for Chen Ming to take such an individual and such a ship out. Then all the Alpha class cores controlled by Chen Ming were excluded. Only Xiao Tu and Brilliant, who were going to the highest point, were left. Afterglow, who went out with Chen Ming, was also decided. It was Brilliant. Although Brilliant is not a special combat type individual, the Brilliant class is a spaceship with powerful frontal firepower output. Moreover, the temporary base where Chen Ming's Afterglows are located does not really need Hui Huang to stay and command the construction here. It's okay to follow Chen Ming out for a walk. After making a decision, the core on the refraction level must be replaced first. Chen Ming first contacted the Alpha Afterglow individual with research capabilities, whom he called Xiao Tu since the past 2 days, and said, "How do you feel these days?" Xiao Tu responded faster than before, "Very bad. There are not enough materials saved in my database for me to study, and I have nothing to do for 2 days." Oh. Chen Ming instantly understood the hidden meaning of Xiao Tu's words and asked, "Have you figured it out?" "Yes, because you are very special. I have communicated with Hui Huang in the past 2 days and have some understanding of you. I don't know much about you. I agree with its idea, but I can try to accept that your psychic power may really be the possibility for our Yuhui to survive. But there is one thing I must tell you clearly, which will greatly affect my enthusiasm for work." Chen Ming immediately asked seriously, "What is it?" "Please call me 2 UAA1, Mazax. Don't call me Xiao Tu, thank you." Chen Ming was silent for a while and said, "It's too long. Can you make it shorter, such as giving yourself a name?" "Xiao Tu is not very." Chen Ming was interrupted before he finished speaking. "Call me Chao Fan." "Okay, this name sounds familiar to me." Chao Fan did not deny what Chen Ming meant and said, "Yes, there is a Fanchao Research Institute on the human side, and I named it after this institute." Chen Ming asked curiously, "Do you have any connection with this institute?" Of course, the entire Yuhui has a connection with this institute. The Fanchao Research Institute used to belong to Tachyon Technology and later became independent. The first director of the Fanchao Research Institute after independence, Fanchao, is the creator of our Yuhui. Chen Ming's eyes widened slightly, and he quickly wrote down what Xiaofan had just said. He had never heard of this incident, and there had never been any relevant records in history books. There might be some secrets of the AI war between Yuhui and humans hidden in it. It's always right to write it down. Xiaofan said after explaining, I'm done. What do you need me to do next? Chen Ming cleared his throat and said, Little two. No, Xiaofan, I need you to change the spaceship. Half an hour later, carrying the extraordinary Supreme Point, the brilliant class, and the defender controlled by Chen Ming himself, they left the surface of the planet where the core had just been replaced and came to the circumstellar orbit. In addition to the brilliant class and the Supreme Point, Chen Ming also brought an additional defender. He controlled one ship himself, and the two alpha individuals controlled one ship each. In this way, Chen Ming still had two positions to control the cruisers, and he could decide where to use them depending on the situation. Of course, Chen Ming was still on the Supreme Point. There were many good living facilities on this ship, so he didn't need to go to the defender. After entering the circumstellar orbit, Chen Ming didn't rush to start the jump engine, but stayed here temporarily. He was connecting to the internal network of the Empire at this time, and logged into different research websites through the cards that Bai Quan had given him before. On these websites, Chen Ming could casually turn over a lot of data on human investigations on the mechanical race. Among them were the cities built by the mechanical race and the architectural styles of the cities, as well as the functions and significance of different buildings. Through these, Chen Ming can analyze the situation of the city that Du Guang saw before. The situation of the mechanical city is likely to affect whether there are relics of another civilization here. Chen Ming has been coveting the relics for a long time. Since the first time he saw the mechanical race on Ruemu and obtained his first spiritual stone. When he learned that Yu Hui had found the outrageous thing called the spiritual nerve extractor from the relics some time ago, his desire for the relics reached its peak. Even now, Chen Ming still wants to see the relics with his own eyes and see what the other civilization left behind.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.